Hey guys, welcome back to another U.S. History and Film video with Hendricks. Today we're going to be talking about Remember the Titans. Now probably a lot of you guys had already seen this movie. It's one of the best movies around. It's probably one of my most favorite football films ever. So let's take a look at the questions and get right into it. Number one asks, what was integration like in 1971 at T.C. Williams High School and why was it such a problem? Well, obviously they were just now integrating the schools in the film. T.C. Williams was previously an all-white school. Now it's being integrated, and there was a lot of people that didn't like that idea, did they? Not to mention what the school board had done and removed the former head football coach and replaced him with Coach Boone. Number two, what awkward position is Coach Boone put in when he's told that he's appointed the head coach of the football team? Well, he was obviously not real happy about it. He had been passed over before in his own career, and he didn't like that. He didn't like doing it to another guy like Coach Yost. But unfortunately, that was the situation he was in. Now, little did he know that later on, the school board was planning on firing him if he just lost one game. So it was kind of like a sneaky way to get rid of him, really. Number three says, Coach Boone applies the statement, "This is not a democracy," to his players and coaching staff. How effective is this as a leadership approach? Initially, maybe it didn't seem to be so good, but as time went on and the kids kind of bought into the program and bought into what Coach Boone was doing, things began to improve significantly, didn't they? Number four says, how is music used in the movie to initially show the separation of the groups and then bring them together? Well, you saw Ryan Gosling's character. They were playing his country music, you know, when the guys were forced to room with somebody from another race. And he's like, oh yeah, I don't even have to ask. You like this one, right? And what did Blue say? Oh, is this cruel and unusual punishment or whatever? And then later on, you saw the guys playing their own music, Blue and his friends. And Gosling didn't like it, but he sort of like came around and began dancing to it later on in the locker room and things like that, to the Ain't No Mountain High Enough song. I mean, who doesn't like that? Come on, man, you know? Number five, what does Gary Bertier learn about his leadership and attitude from Julius and Rev? Well, when they're having that little argument there, when they were supposed to learn something about their roommates, and Bertier says to Julius, you know, man, that's the worst attitude I ever seen. How does Julius respond? Well, he says, attitude reflects leadership. And Bertier realized, yeah, he wasn't being hard on the white players as he should have been as the leader. You know, when they weren't doing their job, when they weren't blocking for Rev or whatever. And that sort of hit him in the gut and sort of turned him around right there as well. Number six says, Coach Boone takes the team on a night run to where 50,000 men died at the Battle of Gettysburg. What was the fight they were still fighting today? Obviously, it was the racism in society at the time that was demonstrated by the people, you know, arguing against the integration, etc., etc. Number seven, before the first game of the season, Coach Boone tells the team that they are already winners. Why does he believe this? Well, like you said, they came together in camp. They got past the problems they were having initially. They got past the fact that maybe a lot of people in the town and society didn't want the team to come together like they did, but they did. So whatever happens on the field, we already accomplished more than anybody thought that we would, basically. Number eight, what is evident on the first day back to school even though the team has come together? Well, the rest of the school hasn't. It was just the first day at school, and anybody not on the football team that hadn't spent time together were having some issues, as was demonstrated on their way into the building. Especially also when they, gave Sunshine some trouble. Hey, you hippie boy, things like that. Number nine, why is Coach Yost willing to lose his Hall of Fame nomination in the regional final game? Well, because he doesn't think the guys on the team, or Coach Boone, for example, should be, penalized or something like that for something that isn't their fault. They're being cheated out of a win when they're playing hard and they've worked hard and they deserve to win the game if they play good enough, not to be cheated out of it by the referees and all, just so he can get his spot back as head coach and be back in the Hall of Fame. Number 10. After Gary Bertier's accident, what does Coach Yost point out to Boone as being his problematic attitude towards the game? Well, if you remember, Coach Boone was like, let's talk about what we're going to do. Let's talk about the game. Let's talk about the practice, whatever. And Coach Yost said, hey, man, slow down. Take it easy. Like, we've got a team hurting here. We have a player injured. and the rest of the team is emotionally hurting. We got to do something about that. The game is important and all, but this is, life. This guy is seriously important, and people love this player. So he's telling him, just hold off a little bit. Take a little moment to take a breath. Number 11, in the final game, what does Coach Yost realize that he has to change at halftime, and why is this ironic considering what the players have already done? Well, he realizes he needs to kind of swallow his pride a little bit and ask Coach Boone for some help. Before that, they were sort of working, Coach Boone running the offense, Coach Yost running the defense, and they weren't really working together. But he realizes, hey, you know what? Like you said, Ed Hendricks out there kicking my butt. I need some help here. Can you help me out? And that's sort of funny because the players have obviously already done that through the entire film. Number 12, how did playing football help the students overcome their prejudices about each other? Well, that's really simple. And it's not even about race so much. It's period. Anybody different from you for any reason. Let's say maybe you're like rock and roll music, they like country music. If you spend time together with somebody and you get to know them a little bit, those sort of like prejudices disappear. Maybe not totally disappear, but you can get over them for sure, right? Exposure to another culture, to another person's ideas and attitudes totally improves you and makes you understand them better as well. And it's amazing how well that works. It's real easy to dislike somebody when you don't have to ever spend any time with them. And that's true at work as well. There's plenty of times when you might go to work at a job and, there's people that work there that you think are weirdos or different from you, whatever. Spend a little bit of time and you realize they're all just people. Maybe they like to do things different from you a little bit, whatever. But exposure to other people can totally improve your mindset and your point of view. Number 12, how did playing football help the students Number 13, how did the football team at TC Williams help the adults in the community overcome their prejudices? Well, obviously, they're cheering for a winner. It's great to get out there to the game and cheer and high five. Ever been to a football game? You might be next to somebody, I'm talking about like a Texans game or something, next to a total stranger. They score a touchdown, you're high-fiving, hugging. I've had guys jump on me, jump on my shoulders. It's crazy. When you have a shared sort of sense of accomplishment, even though you maybe not on the team, if you're cheering for the team, you do have that shared sense. It can bring you together big time and get over all the things. You know what, that guy's different, but he's cool. We both like the team. It's awesome. 14, why does the movie begin and end with the funeral scene? Well, of course, we don't realize it at the time when the movie starts, but they were at Gary Bertier's funeral. He was killed by a drunk driver about 10 years after his initial accident, which is very unfortunate. Number 15, are the issues in the film still controversial? Perhaps not as bad, but we still have some issues like that, right? Now, unfortunately, I know a lot of you guys love this movie, but I'm going to, unfortunately, have to ruin a few things for you right here. For a start, I want to tell you a few of the made-up things in the movie. Number one would be the people, right? Ryan Gosling's character, Alan, totally made up for the movie. Did not exist, was not a real person. Ray, the lineman that Bertier had to kick off the team, didn't exist, was just made up for the film as well. Bertier's girlfriend, who, they sort of broke up and all, she was fake as well. She wasn't real either. Did the team go to the Gettysburg camp and at the Gettysburg College go to camp? Yeah, they did. That part is true. They did spend a week there. They didn't go on a midnight run down to the battlefield or anything like that, though. At least not the way it was portrayed in the film. Was the racial tension at the camp as bad as it was in the film? The answer there is no. Coach Boone, Coach Yost, all the players that were there had said that there was some tension at camp, mostly because guys were worried about starting positions. It wasn't about race as what they made it out to be in the film. Did Bertier and Campbell become best friends in real life? Not really. No, they weren't really any closer than anybody else on the team was to anyone else. Unfortunately, that was made up for the movie, just for the fun of it. Did Sunshine really kiss Bertier on the lips in the locker room? No, that never happened. It was just a silly thing for the film as well. Was he really a long-haired hippie from California? Yeah, sorta, kinda, but all the guys back then had long hair. I'd like to show you a photo if I can, if it'll show up on the film, I hope. Here's the real Gary Bertier and his actual long hair. Oh, you can see it there. Yeah, what do you think? That's the real Bertier and his real long hair. Yeah, they all had real long hair like that. It was the 1970s. That was the style. If you watch the original Star Wars film, you see Luke Skywalker's long hair, right? Let's see here. Where's it at here? Oh, this is a great one. Did protesters really, in real life, stand outside of T.C. Williams High School on the first day of school? Well, the sad part is that whole entire storyline was completely made up. The school was already integrated by 1971 for several years at this point. T.C. Williams had been playing. Coach Boone had even been coached there for a couple of years already. That wasn't his first year coaching when they won the state championship. And as a matter of fact, there wasn't anybody protesting out there in 1971 because they had all gotten over it. And in fact, nobody even really protested a couple of years prior when they actually integrated the schools. Totally overblown, totally made up. Before the first game, Coach Boone tells his players, like all the other schools in this conference, they're all white. They don't have to worry about race. We do. That line was made up mostly because every school was integrated in 1971. They all had black and white players on the team playing together. It wasn't just T.C. Williams. That hurts, doesn't it? Totally made up. Did Coach Boone toss a banana to rival Coach Tyrell at the end of the game? That's a great scene in the movie. Always cracks me up. I love that scene. Totally made up. Did not exist. In fact, Coach Tyrell himself was a made-up character as well. Didn't exist. Was there really a plot with the referees to throw the game and get Coach Yost back in the Hall of Fame, get him back as the head coach? No, that never happened. Completely made up as well. In fact, Virginia didn't even have a high school Hall of Fame in 1971. So the whole talk about Coach Yost getting into the Hall of Fame was completely made up as well. None of that stuff is true. Coach Yost's daughter, Cheryl, was she really a football fanatic? Well, she did go to the games, but she wasn't like she was in the film. She never spent any time over at the Boone's house. So that scene where he grabbed the shotgun and ran outside when the guys threw the brick through the window was totally fake. Speaking of which, did that really happen? Did somebody really throw a brick through the window at Coach Boone's house? Sort of. That's the one scene in the movie that's not a completely made up scene, but in fact, the guys actually threw a toilet through his window. I know, right? Why would they throw a toilet through the window? Well, maybe they thought it would be gross. And the movie, I don't know this for sure, I just sort of like assume, the movie changed it to a brick because they probably thought if people saw a toilet fly through the window, they would crack up laughing. That's kind of my thoughts. I don't know, I could be wrong about that, but that was my thoughts. Was Cheryl an only child? No, she had 3 older sisters. They don't mention them in the film. They actually lived with their mom. All the kids did, including Cheryl. But the 3 older sisters didn't care about football at all. They didn't go to the games or anything like that at all, so they weren't really bothered. The restaurant racial incident, whenever Petey and Sunshine are kicked out of the restaurant, did that really happen? No. Some of those attitudes probably did exist in 1971 in Virginia, but that scene never happened because restaurants were not allowed to do that. Let's see here. Did the team ever dance on the field the way they did in the movie? No, that was made up for the film as well. Totally made up. They never made that dance, never did that song. Now, were the Titans really the underdogs like the film implies? I wish you could see this. I don't think you can. You can't read it. But it's on the website here I'm looking at. It's called Chasing the Frog. It's a great site that'll tell you about movies and the junk that they make up. But just to give you an idea, T.C. Williams was awesome. They were an amazing team. They won every game. The closest game they played was against Marshall. 21-16 was the final. In the playoffs, there's a 3-round playoff system in Virginia at the time. They won the first round 28-0. Second round game, they won it 36-14. And the state championship game, remember in the movie, they come down to the wire and they have to run like 70 yards with Rev running the ball and Sunshine blocking, and they win it on the last play at the last second. Totally made up. State championship game, final score, 27-0. They blew them away, right? Now, Bertier. Was Bertier really paralyzed in a car accident? Yes, he was. That part's true, sort of. He didn't actually get paralyzed. He didn't have the accident until he was finished playing the football season. They had gotten through the state championship. They won the championship. He was actually driving home on his way home from the banquet after the season. And the car he was in was a 68 Camaro. And those cars, some of them had a defect. The engine mount would come loose. and that happened to him while he's driving. So the engine mounts came loose, and the engine, of course, it shakes really strongly. Once the engine's loose and it's banging around like this, you can't steer, and he lost control and he crashed, and that's how he got paralyzed. But he did play in the state championship game. He did not watch it on TV from his hospital bed. And I don't know this for sure or not, and it's not addressed in the site here. But I would just guess in 1971 they probably didn't play the state championship game on TV at that point in time. Now, the question is, of course, how good of a football player was Gary Bertier? This is the part where the movie actually probably doesn't do a good enough job showing us. Bertier was super, super amazing football player. He was an All-American, and he had offers from like every big school as long as my arm. If they had Twitter back then, he'd have been all over Twitter. I've been offered my 67th offer, blah, blah, blah. He was an amazing player, and he was probably the reason why they won all those games so handily. He was unstoppable. And yes, he did really die. That part was true. He was really killed by a drunk driver in 1981, just about 10 years after they won the state championship game. That part is definitely true. So anyway, guys, I'm sorry if I ruined the film for you. I hope you at least enjoyed learning the real truth about the movie. And I hope it gives you an idea as you go into your future, when you watch a film, especially a film based on a historical event, that a lot of times they change a lot of details just to make it a slightly more interesting film. So you have to keep your mind on that, especially when it comes to our historical films, right? Guys, we got just a couple of weeks left, and I hope you're having a great time. If you have any questions or whatever, hit me up on the cell phone, and I'll talk to y'all later. Take it easy.